Good morning, class. It is Leap Day, February 29th. Crazy to think. It seem to have gotten much colder here in Aberdeen, for those of you around here, today than it was last weekend, but hey, I like the warm weather on the weekends anyway. So yeah, February 29th through March 5th is our new week in this class. You have submitted your proposals with just a little bit more information besides that literature review that you had submitted already. And so I will take a look at those and get back to you on those throughout this week in the next few days. But for this week, you have the opportunity to learn and read about single subject experimental research. So we've learned last week about experimental research and all of the other different kinds of quantitative research that are out there. Single subject is a little bit different than experimental research. For instance, with experimental research, you tend to have two groups of people. One group that receives the treatment, one group that is a control group. And so experimental research, you manipulate who is in the group too, and you also manipulate the conditions for the treatment group. So you might, and obviously you randomly assign members of each of those two groups, so that there is no bias in your assignment of members to those groups. So that's experimental research. Now we're moving into this idea of single subject experimental research, which means that basically each person who is you have a single group or a single person, and each group or person receives both control and treatment conditions. And so it's more like, think about it as time. Time passes. The one single subject that's in your research is going to have some kind of control experience or your normal life experience, and then they're going to have a treatment experience, and you're going to measure the results of both of those to see if the treatment is working. So you'll measure first what they experience in the control, and then you also measure it in the treatment group after they receive a treatment group. So this is a common type of research for students who might be having behavioral problems in schools. You might measure a little bit of over time of the number of behaviors that they exhibit during, let's say, month 1. And then in month 2, you start a treatment. You start to use a special behavioral reinforcement treatment with that student. And then over month 2, after they have received that treatment, you also measure the amount of behaviors that they have. And if it turns out that during the second month the number of behaviors of that student have gone significantly down, then you can say that perhaps that treatment that you had implemented actually had its effect, that it does decrease the amount of behaviors, bad behaviors from that student. So that's one example of single subject experimental research. Another example is one that we're running right now actually over at the May Overby School. We have students coming in and implementing iPads, bringing in iPads for each student over in a class in May Overby, in a 5th grade classroom. And they're doing reading comprehension activities with those students about the book that they have read each week, or the story that they have read each week. So what's interesting about that is what we did was we took data before coming into the class. So we took that class's information about reading and their reading comprehension ability. Before ever coming into the class, we have that information, and now we came into the class and did these iPads with this single group again, and we are going to find out how the reading comprehension has maybe changed with these iPad activities that we do with the students. So it's single subject in that it's a single group, and it's one class within the school, and so that's the single group. And they receive both the control and treatment conditions. They receive a control condition, which is their normal class without us coming in and bringing the iPads, and then they receive a treatment condition, which is us coming in and bringing the iPads. And we're measuring both of those conditions to see if there is any change in their reading comprehension skills over time. So it would be considered single subject even though it's more than one participant, because it's a single group of people receiving all receiving treatment. So that's what you'll be learning about in a bigger nutshell this week, is single subject experimental research. And then you're also going to post a little bit about the type of research designs that you might implement for your study. Now you are proposing to me, and you've presented a proposal to me, So let's talk about it a little bit more. Is there any of these that seems to fit for you in your proposal? Let's discuss it with classmates now and see what they think about your ideas about how you would study this, whether it's survey, correlational, causal, comparative, experimental, and so forth. But also remember that your research study can be one of the qualitative types that we are going to learn more about hereafter in the future after spring break. So and then you'll take a quiz about the reading, and you'll also complete and submit the reading activity or the research activity. And so if you have not yet been able to set up that, you need to, of course, do that interview as soon as possible. Conduct the interview according to the protocol that I have provided for you, and it is attached to this research activity. There are certain questions you must ask and get the answers to those. You must record your interview and you must transcribe it after you've done recording it. And once you have done that, you can submit your transcription to me and fill out the form. Well, your transcription will be filling out the form, and then submit that with all the elements of the form filled out by the end of this week on March 5th. However, I do understand that some of you may need a little more time. Some of the contacts have been slow to get back to you. So just let me know about that. If that's something that you are not able to do in time because your contact needs to talk to you instead next week, then that's okay too. You can work on that next week and just submit it a little bit later. So I understand that's the way research goes, right? You can't always do the research within the timeline that you plan because participants have other things to do as well, and they have schedules to keep. So that's the information for this week, and I'll wish you good luck on this wonderful leap day. Have a great week.